Open for business. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Stephanie, can you please do roll call?
Yes. Member Rivera and Member Douglas will have excused absences for the record. Chair Aquendo.
Here.
Vice Chair Carney.
Here.
Member Lantry.
Here.
Member Grigsby.
Present.
Member Alexander.
Present.
And you will be a voting member this evening.
And we do have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Has everybody looked at the minutes from the last meeting? Do I get a motion, please?
I move to accept the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll second it.
I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 5-0.
Okay, we'll be calling today for the new business ordinance number 2023-03, DRC case CDA 22-0005.
Good evening, members of the board. Dagmar Segarra, Planning Manager. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's to you.
Good to see you all this evening. So our first order of business is the residential design standards. As it was read to the record, this is an amendment to ordinance. This is to adopt a new ordinance for the residential design standards. As you recall, we were in front of you with a tentative architectural design standard back in March. We had some in place to have some residential guidelines. At the direction of the City Council, they asked staff to adopt an interim set of standards. Currently, the county is revising their own architectural design standards for residential. So it is the goal of the city to adopt similar architectural design standards as the county, but of course with addressing the needs of the city. So I believe that those standards were approved at the first meeting in January last week. And we have consultants working on that. In the meantime, the City Council has asked us to adopt some standards that are going towards the goal, the final goal, that is having the design standards match this Osceola County standards. And one of the drafts that we utilized to make this proposal, it was the City of Oviedo, based on the direction of the City Council. So we took the City of Oviedo's standards and we adjusted to the needs and heading to the direction that the city would like to move forward as we complete this project later in the next few months. So what I'm going to be presenting to you is the comparison between what we have right now and what we are adding to it. All right? So first, the applicability remains the same. It's going to apply to single-family residents, and it's going to apply townhomes, duplex, single-family attached, including townhomes. So that stays the same. We are, did I do that?
While we're waiting for her to clear that, can I just ask you, what would it not apply to?
It would not apply to multifamily and non-residential.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I do not know if I did that. I don't think I did that. I think that came from, yeah, I don't think I did that.
Mr. B. Miller, fix that. Help.
I don't know. Are they right there?
He was. There he is.
Jen. Oh, there he is. Okay. So, So one of the languages that we included in this revision, or that they remain the same, is that anything that has already an overlay would remain the same. It would not apply to the overlays. It would not apply to anything, if there is any conflicts between the city code and this code, the code, whichever is restricted applies, which is the same language that we have right now. And then we tweaked the language when it refers to deviations. What we are approaching is this way, instead of a set of standards, we created a language that facilitates the intent of the code. And it gives the opportunity to the developer to address a more innovative or creative design, and not strictly to some characteristic for the deviation. And this is going to be approved by the city council, any changes to the code. In regards to the variety of products, right now we have that it just says very plain, like a very general statement that they has to be different, and it has to be painted in different colors, and it has to be different elevations. Now we added a little bit more specific language that for the single-family residence detached are going to remain the same, but we put a caveat for the townhomes, stating that the townhomes buildings, they need to be different than the ones that are next to, and each townhome unit within that townhome building, those units, they have to be different from the next unit, either by type, paint, color, elevation. So this is a new requirement that was not existing in our requirement, and it has to do with the building orientation. So basically what now we're requiring is that when it comes to townhomes, the townhomes needs to always, the main door needs to always face the primary facade, which is the main entrance, needs to face either a public, private street or public realm. In the two examples that we see here on the screen, we have the opportunity for those townhomes to be the entrance of the townhomes facing in front of the street, and the garages to the back, and they have the alley behind them. Or the option on the example oriented to the courtyard is that the garage is on the back, but the front door is facing a public realm. That is not necessarily an alley or a public street or a private street. It's just an area for people gathering. In regards to the facade, so now we added, throughout the months after we adopted the architectural design standards, there was a lot of conversation in regards, what is going to do? This applies to all four sides of the house, or this only applied to the first facade. So we decided, I guess we need to define what are the facades and what are going to be the requirements of each facade. So we provided definition for primary and secondary facade. Each of the facade are going to have specific elements that they will have to meet. And also, we added new requirements that it limits the number of units in a building up to 10, or the length of 250 feet, and establish separations between buildings. This is specifically for townhomes. In garages and driveway, we have already a language that limits the garages on the facade, on the primary facade, to 50%. Now the proposed language prohibits any front-facing garages from exceeding a 50% of the facade width. In addition, narrow lots or dwelling must have their access and garages from a rear or side street or alleys. So this will limit the location of the garages in a single-family residence. So we added a little bit more details when it comes to massing and composition. We have some language that it says that you have to break the middle, the base, and the top of the house. Now we're creating more specific standards. And how are those are going to be divided? And we provide a list of that the developer can pick and choose from on how do they wish to break those elements in the middle, base, and top. So it's the same requirement, it's just put it a little bit more options for the developer. In regards to windows and doors, it's going to remain the same, but we are adding that each window are required to be vertical in orientation, and that a minimum of 10% to 20% of a wall be required to have a window or door. And the garage counts in this calculation and this facade type. So what that means is that basically, if you have a door in the garage will count as part of that opening, and then the remaining has to be a window, as you can see on the picture to the right or to your left. And then when we're talking about vertical windows, we're talking about similar to the other illustration. And in regards to the roof, we already have some standards to the roof, and what we have added into our new language is that we added a little bit more elements to how that roof modulation can be achieved. And if the new ordinance provides a variety of lists of different roof planes and different ideas that they can opt to utilize. You can have elements, or you can have different pitch, or you can have different what is it called? I can't think of the word, treatments, to create that different modulation on your roof. And the idea is to break that monotony of that straight facade on the front. That's the idea. So this is a new requirement on our code. It is in regards to materials. So we don't have right now any materials requirements into our architectural design standards, and the proposed language requires that at least 2 different materials types to be used in each facade. And it requires a minimum percentage of stone or brick to be used, and provides a maximum of stucco or wood panel to be used, and prohibit the use of certain materials such as metal. And some other miscellaneous items that they were adding restrictions in regards to colors. The surface area, there was no requirements in certain zoning districts, so we just added into in all that they require screening of the dumpster pads, that the dumpster pads be screened. And then the mechanical equipment, again, no requirement in certain zoning district, and then it requires that the screening of roof and ground mounted equipment. And we added the storage language, which it will the storage language which will remain the same. These missed the strategic goals of growth management. Staff review it and recommend approval. It is requested of this board to approve ordinance or recommend approval ordinance 2223. This 03. This item is scheduled to go in front of the City Council in the first meeting of February. This concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Does anybody on the commission have any questions?
You know I always do.
And I do too.
Would you like to go first?
No.
Maria?
Ladies first.
Okay. So I understand the intent here is to beautify our new homes and townhomes, and I get that. Totally on board with that. My issue that I am concerned about here is that there could be some homes, especially single-family dwellings, that could somehow fit in between the cracks here, and they're going to be forced to do things that they shouldn't have to do. I mean, let's say somebody buys a single lot, they've saved all their life savings, they buy this home, and now they're forced to do things to the home that are really above and beyond what you should have to do, in my opinion. And just as a couple examples, right? The 50% of garage the garage can't exceed 50% of the facade, right? Well, I mean, sometimes you end up with a lot that is a long, narrow lot, and it makes the most sense to put the garage on that side, and you may only have, you know, an entry door or something next to the garage. You see it a lot, right? So, I mean, then they have to go to city council to get approval. Another example would be like, let's say you wanted to do clear story windows, right? A clear story window is a horizontal window, and so that means it doesn't fit approval. So that's just a couple examples. Another one is like, for instance, let's say somebody wants to add on to their house. Like me, for instance, I live in a house that's stucco, right? If I want to add on to my house and it affects more than 50% of the facade, I would be forced to put 3 different materials, or in some cases maybe 2, but my house is already stucco, so why would I put another material other than stucco? You know, maybe I could do some edge banding or something like that. And you already have to get approval from your HOA, you know, the building department. I mean, why force somebody to go and get approval from city council? So what I'm wondering is, I think a lot of these things are really good, but what I'm wondering is there some way we could apply this rather than to everybody and every single family residence and every, you know, duplex, townhome, but could we apply it to like new development? In other words, like actual large communities, you know, maybe there's a certain number of homes that somebody's gonna build that we could apply it to. I don't think it's appropriate to apply it to every single piece of construction that's not commercial or not, you know, something that wouldn't fit under these guidelines. But I do think some of the things are good, like the service areas and the mechanical equipment and the screening and things like that are really good. It's just some of the things that I don't feel comfortable about, and I wouldn't want somebody to have to go through city council just to get an approval for it.
Is there a question?
No.
I
Hers
took
is a
notes.
statement.
I
I didn't
mean,
know
no,
there was a question.
definitely,
No,
all
not
the
really a
comments
question. I mean-
Okay,
will
well,
make it.
my question, adding on to that, is that it is new changes on a non-HOA home, so it would be, as the example that you gave, if you're not in an HOA and you were adding on to your house, et cetera, this applies to that, not just new construction?
It would apply to all,
Anything that you're
Anything
getting a
that
permit
exceeds-
on to build or
Anything that's more than
increase
50% of the facade.
anything that is greater than 50%. And it's not, I'm sorry, it's not the 50% of the facade, it's 50% of the aggregate.
Right,
Right
okay,
now.
yeah. Or a renovation or redesign of facades that impacts more than 50% of each facade area.
And the plans that have been put in front of you guys to approve, is it gonna be grandfathered in, or is it gonna have to re-pull out and put them back in?
No, anything that is currently under review is gonna
Okay.
get approved. I mean, it's just moving on. Any new subdivisions that we get is going to be reviewed. The architectural design standards are gonna be reviewed based on this code. But anything that is currently under review or has already been approved, it's not.
It's not gonna be touched?
No.
And these are the ones that will align with the county? the
These
way
are
you
the
change them?
first, this is kind of like the first stage. Now, once we get the consultant finish the comparison of what the county adopted and what we are right now adopting, then we'll make the changes accordingly, and we would adapt it to the needs of the city. One of the things that the consultant is also working is on the creating areas, the specific areas. We're identifying as part of our comprehensive plan amendment and the future land use element is, we are creating areas throughout the county, identifying some areas as rural areas, some as more urban areas, and we're gonna be revising the Envision St. Cloud throughout that process as well. And it is our goal to create different design standards for those specific areas.
How do contractors and new construction builders, how do they feel about these?
They have their opinions. We've been a part of the collaboration with the county and their, and I always forget the name, the task group which the building association is also part of. And they have come to a place with the county that that the county is going to move forward, taking in consideration some of their
Comments.
comments.
And are, kind of to the point also, that Phil says, are some of those changes, do those cost more? Is that going to cost, some of
Yeah, I
the
mean-
requirements will add additional costs, not just be a requirement, but are costly requirements?
I'm not a builder.
Yeah. That's
Every
probably why the
stick.
builders are saying that, and, you know.
Every stick
it's-
costs money.
Houses are, average house cost in St. Cloud is $400,000, which is amazing these days, so, okay.
Yeah, in figure 3.1, the example of the garages being in the back and being an alley, I like that idea for beautifying St. Cloud. The other figure, I don't like as much, driving around and seeing the garages first and not the front of the homes. I think aesthetically, if we're going for beautifying St. Cloud, I think the top one would be a lot more appropriate for what we're looking for in our city.
That's an example, because there's going to be circumstances that, to allow for that innovative design, that will be appropriate, because that private street in reality could really be an alley.
What scares me about this, and granted, I'm an architect, so I have probably a different viewpoint, but these renderings that we're looking at, they don't even look like Florida homes to me. I mean, they look like something you'd see in like North Carolina or, you know, somewhere up north. I mean, that's just my opinion, but, you know, like for instance, the garages in the back. See, I can see why we would want the architectural materials to match, you know, the building, the main buildings, you know, roof and siding in a situation like this. But let's say you wanted to add a garage in your backyard and you already owned a stucco home. Does that mean you have to do it in stucco?
Well, right
You know
now,
what I mean?
right now, our code, which we also in the process of revamping, but our code, if you were to build a detached garage, it will have to match your house as it exists right now. Once this comes into place, it will remain like that until we revamp the entire LDC to be consistent. But that's why there is that closure that anything that is in contradiction to the code, it will be the more strict.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's why we are having that deviation clause to allow for, you know, not that the entirety of the application of the code would not really make sense.
Yeah, and I understand that. It's just that, you know, you would have to come in front of us and then in front of the city council, and that could take months. And it's one thing if it's a full development, but if it's just some guy trying to build his house, you know, he shouldn't have to go through he or she should not have to go through all that.
Are the artist renderings just artist renderings? Are they all two-story, like required to be two-story?
No, they're just artist rendering. Yeah, we have a sample. The reason that we use a lot of the second floor is because a lot of the changes pertains to the townhomes. But I believe that we have samples of 1 story.
Sorry for my ignorance,
And,
but do townhomes all have to be 2 stories? Is that the definition of a townhome?
No, they
Well,
don't
not
have to be.
necessarily,
Oh,
but,
okay.
But
but
didn't think so.
it
The-
makes sense because, you know, you get more square footage.
Right, but
out
we're
of
an
a
aging
smaller
population,
footprint.
and most people want 1 stories these
Yeah,
days.
well, you know.
yeah, and because of the narrow lots that we get a lot lately.
To get extra bedding. And the one on the townhome where it said, is it either or paint color and elevation? Is it either, that part threw me off, was that the paint color and elevation either or have to be different? Like, is that what you're trying to accomplish in that category?
Yes,
So it could either
It
be,
could
they
be-
could be the same type of unit design, but 2 different colors?
the 2 different colors,
Oh.
yes, that's correct.
Interesting.
So contrasting. some
Yeah,
way.
because the intent is that of the section is
Cookie cutter.
to ensure that there is consistency, that you don't have a hot pink and a yellow.
Hope you don't have hot pink.
Though I love
ever.
hot pink, so.
Miami.
It doesn't say you can't have hot
Should have seen
pink.
the house
I
in
did not
Pine
see
Lake
that.
Estates then.
You're trying to keep it like a celebration.
Celebration is a good example.
Yeah, I've seen this happening up also towards Windermere. Anybody's going to that same look,
Yep.
the harmony celebration look, almost
Everybody.
trying to make it more community felt.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with it so much when it's a development and you're talking about multiple townhomes. It's just, I just am concerned about, especially single-family homes, you know, a one-off that somewhere they're gonna have to fall under these guidelines as well. I would like to see some, you know, exception, if you will, in the code, or in this case, the architectural standards.
Absolutely.
What started all this?
It was per the direction of the city council.
Does anybody else want to speak towards it?
Nope, I'm good.
We're all good?
I'm good.
Public comment.
Okay, we'll now open up for public comment. No public comment. Close for public comment. Any more comments from us?
Nope.
You all good? Can I get a motion, please?
I would like to make a motion to recommend denial of ordinance 2023, sorry, I lost the number here,
2023.
dash 03? Is that the right number?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay. Based, well,
This is a land development code amendment proposal, so it's, you know, you can give whatever
yeah.
general basis.
So the basis for me is that I feel that there should be some exceptions in here for homes or buildings that are not part of a development or a townhome.
Second.
Do I have any other motions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All
Mr.
all against?
Alexander, you have to vote.
Mr. Russell?
I-
Are you in favor or
I-
against?
Aye.
Okay, so it's all, right. Recommendation from the commission is for denial. It'll go before the council first meeting in February, correct?
That's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
I know that it's voted, but one of the things that we can look as a staff is to see if maybe make the exception of, you know, if applying to subdivisions that has 3 or more units.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that I think would make sense.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Next business, ordinance number 2023-06, DRC case CDA 22-00006. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Hey, Chairman, Commissioners. My name's Dave Tomac. I'm with the City Manager's Office. So I've got 2 ordinances. This first one deals with your agricultural zoning district. Because it's a city, we rarely look at the agriculture zoning. What's happening right now is the city's been annexing a bunch of properties. And some of the properties in the county that we're annexing are actually zoned agriculture and conservation. So what we've tried to do is modify our agricultural zoning district so it would allow for those folks to continue their current lifestyle until new development occurs, in which case then they would get one of your normal zoning districts and they can either build industrial, commercial, or a single-family subdivision. So this is kind of one of those transitional kind of zoning districts. We're going to try to provide for more flexibility for agricultural, education, and business in this zoning district, trying to be consistent with the allowances in the county so that the folks don't get penalized just because of the annexation. We want to create a vibrant, progressive, and diverse community through sustainable planning for all those generations. There's not that many acres of this type of zoning that would be in the city. So it does provide for a different lifestyle for folks for a while. You know, raising animals, having more than just 6 chickens, et cetera. The nutshell of this whole thing are these uses on this slide. We deleted the exclusion of pigs, hogs, and swine in the zoning district, mainly because the next ordinance I'm going to talk to you about actually addresses how we regulate pigs in the agricultural zoning district. There's an actual code of ordinances that deals with animals. We want to allow for aviaries, beekeeping, community gardens, general farming for personal needs. You actually have a provision in the agricultural zoning that makes it a conditional use to do commercial kennels and boarding. We want to make that a permitted principal use, which the only difference is it doesn't require a public hearing. Livestock and grazing animals, and then small animals, birds and fowl. The little superscript 1 above the Ps and some of those examples reflect to the next ordinance where we talk about standards for different types of animals. As I said, we've added aviaries, community gardening, livestock, beekeeping, general things that you would see in an agricultural area to the zoning district. Again, we've removed the exclusion and we've made it a permitted use, mainly because with the next ordinance, we get a lot more detailed about best management practices for this different animal husbandry. It's consistent with your strategic planning goals. Prime reason for doing this ordinance is a lot of the folks that are living in the rural areas that are zoned agriculture and conservation in the county don't want to annex into the city because we don't have a placeholder for them until they actually do get developed. So this provides that transitional zoning. And we recommend approval and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Anybody on the committee have any questions?
Just clarification for my ignorance. People who are in the city limits, not annexed in, but are in the city limits, cannot have this livestock, wildlife, chickens, and maybe chickens you can, but.
Yeah, we have a
certain-
backyard,
Yeah.
backyard chicken program,
Right.
and you are allowed, I think, 3 pets in the non-agriculture zoning.
Okay, but most of these are now allowing it because they were annexed in. We want to make sure that they can keep what it is that they have right
Until
now
they
until
develop.
the future development, or they sell their property, or what have
Yeah,
you. So
yeah, the
it's
city of
just a-
St. Cloud's primarily an urban.
Just being nice to those residents and.
Yep.
making sure.
Yeah, it's a holder. Now, I don't think our land use map allows for anybody to come in and just request zoning to agriculture at this point. That's correct. Okay, I just wanted to confirm with somebody who's been here more than 6 months.
Could you please bring up table 3-5 again? I just had some questions about line number 5, I guess.
General farming for personal needs are the
No, the
commercial
second
kennels.
one.
Integrated subdivision.
I guess conditional was crossed out and it's now permitted, is that,
Yes, sir. Yeah, it wouldn't require a public hearing.
okay.
This is kind of typical in the ag areas, you have like boarding stables and things. And so you're not talking about somebody with a 1/4 acre lot, you know. These are typically 5, 10, 20 plus acre lots.
I think this is fair. I mean, you know?
We did, I didn't mention it, but we did have an agricultural ad hoc group that the council appointed. We did meet with them a couple of times. The folks that came, we sent copies to everybody who didn't come just to get their comments. This reflects comments from the animal services folks, the different ag folks, and some of the folks that could potentially be annexed.
Just a curious question, and if you don't have an answer, it's fine, but did this stem from any code enforcement issues that happened?
No,
involving-
just, there was, before my time here, I used to work in the county though, so I remember the meeting well. The city was trying to annex one of these areas that was zoned ag conservation in the county. And there was a lot of those folks that came in all concerned that they couldn't. So the
Okay.
council continued the annexation and said, hey, go work with these people and come up with something to where they can have a transition.
Makes sense.
Makes sense. Any other questions for the applicant?
It is a
Thank you, sir.
public hearing.
We're open for public comments. Okay, no public comments. Any other questions for anybody?
No.
Okay, we'll open it up for a motion.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 2023-06. Is this based on the 16 findings?
No, it's just a
Just
LVC amendment.
approval.
I'll second that.
Okay. We have a first, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All against? Okay. Passes.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we're going to hear letter C, ordinance number 2023-07, DRC case CD A22-0007.
Thanks, Chairman, Planning Commissioners. I'm Dave Tomac again from the City Manager's Office. Okay, so this is like a companion to the change in the zoning district. One of the things that, in talking to these folks that have agricultural properties, is they are concerned that just anybody could, just throw a bunch of animals on the property and create problems. So we talked to the animal services folks that do code enforcement. We talked to a large animal veterinarian. We talked to the University of Florida Extension Services folks, just trying to get an idea of what the best management practices for this type of lifestyle would be, so that, they'll have a lot more animals on the property, but they'll be done in a way that's conducive to the property that they're on. So we're recommending that we modify the Code of Ordinances provision. There's already a section in Chapter 8 of your Code of Ordinances that actually deals with animals. So we're recommending that you actually modify that section. We want to incorporate best management practices for animals of all sizes, small, medium, and large. And I'll talk to you about each of those sizes, because they have actually different requirements depending on the size of the animals. Again, we want to create a vibrant, progressive, and diverse community. We know this is transitional lifestyle because the city's basically urban, and we'll get there eventually. But at the end of the day, while we're allowing these types of use, we want to make sure that it is vibrant, safe, healthy, et cetera. First thing in order, we introduced the chickens for the backyard chicken program a while back. We want to raise the number of chickens you can keep on your property from 4 to 6. That's a backyard chicken program that's pretty much in any district. That was just something that when we were talking to the folks at Extension, they recommended that we add a couple more chickens because, it's kind of how you buy them and raise them and stuff. And, some of the chickens don't make it, some don't lay eggs, all that kind of garbage. So we've recommended that we go from 4 to 6. We also want to provide for an exemption citywide if you have a child in the 4-H or FFA program and you're raising a market animal, which kind of teaches our kids how to raise animals and how to see how they can make money doing it. It's a good program. We would provide an exemption for kids to do that. Now, obviously, if you live in a townhouse or a quarter-acre lot and you can't do it, you can actually have your animal at somebody else's property that has 2 acres or 1 acre, and you could actually do it. However, if you got a goat or something like that, yeah, you might be able to pull it off on a smaller lot. We've actually provided that if they show that they're legitimately in one of these programs, that they can actually raise the animal during that cycle, and they'd be okay. We talked about restricting swine. We took it out of the zoning ordinance. However, we do restrict swine unless it's agriculturally zoned, and we limit the number of pigs to 2 per parcel. So we still have a prohibition or a restriction. It's just not in the zoning district, it's in this Code of Ordinances. We've also increased the maximum limit in agriculturally zoned properties consistent with these best management practices. So it's 3 if it's not zoned agriculture. We're going to go through them as we speak. Pet dogs not to exceed 4. People in the ag area use their animals for more than just petting them and sitting on the porch. You know, the dogs are actually used to actually help with the goats, the sheep, the cattle, etc. Number of cats shall not exceed 8. Not a particular cat lover. 8 seems like a bit much to me, but if you got 20 acres and you got a barn and you need to keep the mice down, they got a bunch of cats. For all other small animals, these are animals that are less than 40 pounds at mature weight. Chickens, rabbits, birds, and fowl. You're limited to a total of 20 per acre. And you have to have at least a half acre property. And if you have a barn or anything that houses these animals, you got to be at least 25 feet from the property line. Medium-sized animals, 41 pounds to 400, typically sheep, goats, most swine. That's a big pig if you get it over 400 pounds. You're limited to a total of 5 per acre. Minimum half-acre property again. And again, if you got a structure for these animals, you got to be at least 25 feet from the property line. Large animals, over 400 pounds, this is where you're getting into the donkeys, horses, mules, and cattle. You're limited to 1 head per acre. And you have to have a minimum of 2-acre property. And then if you got, again, if you got a structure, it's 25 feet from the property line. I've got a mistake on this slide in the ordinance. It says the land must be suitable for the keeping of horses. Wetlands cannot be counted toward the 2 contiguous acre minimum. You know, so you can have wetlands, you just can't count it towards the minimum 2-acre requirement if you want to have horses or cows.
Okay.
Big reason for that was these are animals that live off of the land, and they want to make sure that there's enough land for them to graze on. I've talked enough. It's consistent with your strategic planning goals. Staff has recommended approval. We would ask that you recommend approval as well, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for the applicant? I know I do.
Yes, sir.
I know for the chicken program, you had to take a class. Are they still doing the class?
Yes, yeah.
You
As
still
part of
have
the
to take a
backyard
class?
chicken, the program's the same.
Okay,
The only thing we did was we let you have 2 more.
2 more.
Okay. And with FFA, would that count like, let's say we have kids in the state streets that have parcels that are almost an acre, will that be able to help them?
Yeah, so if you've got the animal exemption, what typically happens is because they're going through FFA and 4-H, they'll make sure that the land is suitable for that. That's why I said a lot of the kids that raise cows and
Yeah, I've been involved in the program.
yeah, they'll find a friend who's got a bigger piece of property if they don't have it big enough.
Okay.
You know, or they buy a lot of hay, which they find out very quickly means that they don't make any profit. That their kids are having a lovely time, but the parents are footing the bill.
So again, this is only in conjunction with the ag zoning to give them some basis and guidelines.
Yes, ma'am, best management practices.
Yeah, and I guess that's good, the extra chickens at the price of eggs nowadays. And,
It might be an option for people to have more backyard chickens.
and I know it's an aside, but that means that anybody, again, that's in state streets, et cetera, on a 1/4 of an acre, unless they get a permission, they can have chicken program or?
Yeah,
they're in the
if they
chicken
go
program.
through the backyard chicken program, they can do the chickens.
Yeah, they give you a nice certificate.
Yeah, and you do go to a class with, at the University of Florida, that has a nice program where they take you through all the requirements and making sure it's healthy and clean.
Great.
Now, does this also match the restrictions that the county has for agriculture?
Yeah, pretty much. The Animal Services Director for the county did review this. We've added a few things that the county doesn't have, but it was at the request of the vet and the Animal Services Director to be very clear about, especially the larger animals, what was allowed.
Okay.
I mean, 1 head per acre does seem a little bit
I know, I was thinking of that
strict to
too,
me.
but he said about what they eat. I don't know how much they eat, so,
But
Yeah.
the
Well, I'm
one-
just thinking of some
No.
people I know that own, let's say, 10 acres.
well,
Yeah.
They've
for
got
the,
30 head of cattle.
well, for a long time, there's always been, like in some rural areas, it's only been 1 per acre.
Yeah. Are they bona fide ag?
Yeah,
If they got 30 head of cattle, they're bona fide ag.
Yeah, yeah.
There isn't a law we can
Oh,
pass
so-
that takes care
yeah,
of
because
them.
this is really
Yeah,
more
if
for-
they're running an actual business and they're bona fide ag,
yeah,
we're not regulating them. These are just people that are living a more rural lifestyle.
right, okay.
Yeah, bona fide ag still holds true in the city.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, that's good. Any other questions?
And then if they want to buy the extra hay, they can.
Any more questions or comments?
Nope.
Okay, we'll close it up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Open up for public comment. No public comments. We'll close it off. Any more questions? If not, can we get a motion, please?
I move that we approve, make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number 2023-07.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passes.
Thank you
sir.
very much.
Okay, now we'll be seeing ordinance number 2023-01, DRCK ZMA 22-00010. Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Tisha Manning, Senior Planner in Community Development. I'm presenting a zoning map amendment for personal mini storage. It's approximately 5.8 acres located east of Florida's Turnpike, west of Old Canoe Creek Road, and south of Continental Street. The current future land use is commercial, and the current zoning is neighborhood business. The proposed future land use will remain commercial, and however, the zoning is changing from neighborhood business to highway business. This is compatible with the surrounding area and poses no adverse impact on city facilities. This is just a zoning map to kind of show you where it's located. Just right here, right off of Canoe Creek, right down from the 7-Eleven, just to give you a general location. It is consistent with the growth management of the strategic plan goal. And DRC has reviewed the request for the zoning map amendment. We do recommend approval, and we ask the same of the Planning Commission. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. I have a question. Do we have a process currently in place to prevent this from happening in the future where things get annexed into the city and for some reason, when they get annexed, they fall under, one zoning type, but they need to be another in order to be in compliance?
Correct. So what has happened in this case is I believe just because of code amendments, they remain neighborhood business when the code changed, and so that use wasn't allowed there. I did try to go back and do some research to see what the previous neighborhood business uses were, but wasn't able to find concrete evidence of that. So that's the reason why we're requesting the zoning.
Okay. I think it makes sense. I just, want to make sure that city staff's looking at this possible outcome in the future and how to prevent it.
We do look for consistency when we're annexing property into the city now. So we do have our compatibility and consistency table that is part of the LDC.
Excellent. Thank you.
Any other questions for the city? Okay, thank you, ma'am. We'll close it and open up for our public comments. If I have no public comments, we'll close it up. And,
You wish to hear from the applicant?
is the applicant here and would like to speak?
The applicant is not available.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, can we, everybody's, has any other questions? Can we get a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of ordinance number ZMA 22-00010, which is also ordinance number 2023-01, based on the 16 findings within the Land Development Code.
Second.
I have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All against? Passes.
Yes, sir. 5-0.
Okay, we are down to resolution number 2023-013R, DRC case CNU 22-00013.
Good evening again, Tisha Manning, Senior Planner in Community Development. The case before you tonight is a conditional use for the St. Cloud Hospital, and it's for relocation of their helipad. This is on it's gonna remain on their campus, so it's approximately 15.035 acres, and it's located north of 17th Street, west of Buttinger, and south of Kansas Avenue. The current zoning is professional. The future land use is private institutional. And again, the proposed use is for a helipad. They already have an existing helipad, and they're just relocating it on their campus. The conditional use is in the professional district, and it provides no adverse impacts on city facilities. Again, that's just the location of the hospital, and I have a conceptual plan where you'll see a little bit better where they're actually going to relocate it. So this is going to be the new location of the helipad. And again, it's already on their campus, they're just moving it. It is in alignment with the strategic plan goals of growth management and economic development. We have reviewed this request for conditional use to relocate that helipad. We recommend approval, and likewise, we ask the same of the Planning Commission. Again, I'm available if you have any questions, and the applicant is also available.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for her?
I have a question. How many helipads can it land on it?
How many helicopters?
Yeah.
One, I believe,
One
but
at
the
a time,
applicant
yeah.
can probably better answer that question.
No, because my daughter's in one of them. She's a trauma nurse.
Oh, how
One of
many
the
helicopters can land on that helipad?
Yeah,
I will leave that question for the applicant.
okay.
Okay.
I would like that.
Go ahead, sir, state your name and
Hi.
address.
Yeah, Selby Weeks with Klima Weeks Civil Engineering. We're at 385 Douglas Avenue in Altamont Springs, Suite 2100. And the answer to the question, I mean, that's for me to walk up here. It is one. It's one helicopter at a time. And just, I'm not going to try to answer too many questions here, but just to get maybe a little ahead of it. It's a small community hospital, as you guys are probably aware, and has served this community for quite some time. And so the purpose of this project is, we would call it an enabling project. One of your commissioners here has worked with me on enabling projects before. And so we're relocating the helipad to basically prepare the site to be able to add services at the hospital in the future.
To be modified.
So,
to
yeah,
build
and
the
that's
building.
the reason. So it doesn't really change the
use?
it's not going to change the number of trips. Doesn't change anything about the helipad other than, in some aspects we might be bringing it up to the most recent FAA circular, but it doesn't really otherwise change anything. It just moves the helipad to another location on the site.
So by moving the helipad, it's actually moving it closer where you're designing it to the new entrance to the emergency room, other than the back area.
That's correct. It is actually, it's over on the west side of the hospital.
Well said.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Nope.
Thank you, sir. Open up for public comments, if we have any. Okay. Close the public comments. Anybody on the committee have any other questions?
No, sir?
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
Oh, I would love to make a motion to recommend approval of resolution number 2023-013R, based on the 6 factual matters within the Land Development Code.
I'll second that.
Have a first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes.
It passes.
I might need that helipad one day, who knows?
Amen to that.
Ms. Stephanie, do we have any other business?
Nope. Our next meeting will be February 21st at 6 p.m.
Okay, February 21st, 6 p.m. If there's nothing else, I motion for dismissal.
So moved?
Okay, we're approved. Dismissal. Have a good night.
Good night, thank you.